Hi, welcome to my other instructional video on the book Radical Evolution and the 4 technologies described therein. So, I have already mentioned that for extra credit, you can use a supplemental text for the course. You're going to have to obtain it either in print version. Here is the soft cover and the hardcover editions. They're exactly the same thing. Page numbers are even the same. Pretty inexpensive. The list price on the paperback edition here is $16.99. The hardback is $26, but with Amazon finding used books, you probably find one, for like a penny, and then pay the $4 shipping. Probably get one for like $4 pretty quickly. They're also available on Kindle. They're not available as free PDF, or it's one book, is not available as a free PDF as far as I can find. It's called the book's called Radical Evolution by Joel Garreau. Joel Garreau is a writer for the Washington Post. So it's a science book, but it's not one written in such a way that it's difficult to understand. It's written for a common audience, and it's pretty engaging. And it discusses 4 technologies. And the reason I'm using it as a supplemental text is that in the expanded definition assignment and in our final research project assignment, we're going to work with these technologies as our subject matter. Now, I already mentioned, if you watch the expanded definition video part 1, that you choose from these 4 technologies for your subject for the expanded definition, but you can't choose nanotechnology for the expanded definition because it's already in the textbook. So it sort of made it a natural fit that one of the examples of expanded definition in our textbook, which if you don't own already, you should own it, the Lannan textbook of technical communication, 13th edition. All right, so you can't choose nanotechnology for the expanded definition because it's basically the same. Would be the same as in the textbook, but you choose from one of these other 3 technologies, and then when we get to the research project, all of the 4 technologies would be available then. So the technologies are known as the GRIN technologies, and you can see he kind of forced it because artificial intelligence doesn't start with an I, it starts with an A, but to get the acronym GRIN, he used it as his I in GRIN. So you got genetic engineering, you got robotics, you have artificial intelligence, nanotechnology that make up the GRIN technologies, which are 4 technologies that when Radical Evolution was written, which was back in 2005, were up-and-coming technologies that are going to have a huge impact on our life and our world. Now here we are over 10 years later, and the technologies have made an impact, but not yet as big an impact as they're predicting. And I'll talk about what I mean by the big impact with what I have over here in a minute. But I want you to have just sort of an understanding, basic understanding of these technologies as you select one to write about for your expanded definition. And then I can't remember if you write about just one or more than one for the research project. So I'll talk about that in another video maybe. And of course there's documentation that describes that. I just don't remember the exact stipulations. So let's start with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been well documented in science fiction movies. One of the most famous examples from the late 60s with classic science fiction movies 2001: A Space Odyssey, in which the artificial intelligence program HAL locked the astronauts out of the spacecraft. And so you get the astronaut coming up to the pod bay doors, running low on oxygen, says, "Hal, open the pod bay doors." And Hal says, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that." And you get this whole conflict there. Since then, of course, we had a movie called Artificial Intelligence, and we have lots of artificial intelligence examples in our lives. Siri is a famous example of current, very strong artificial intelligence on the iPhone. When you're using voice-to-text technology, you're basically using artificial intelligence because a computer program is taking your vocal speech and converting that into word text on a screen, which is what your brain does. Artificial intelligence is a word that we use to describe when computers simulate things that humans do. We already have had, and since the 70s, we've had a computer that plays chess. Recently had a computer on Jeopardy. And these are examples of artificial intelligence. We have a test for artificial intelligence called the Turing test that will verify the strength of the artificial intelligence, because ultimately a true artificial intelligence that's like human consciousness, we won't be able to tell the difference between the computer and human being. The artificial intelligence will basically be conscious. And one of the tests that describes that, though there's some new tests that they're developing that might be more accurate and might be better than the classic Turing test. Turing has been made more famous recently in the movie The Imitation Game, that you can check out. It was an Oscar winner. The other technologies are more understandable, except maybe nanotechnology, which you might not have heard of. But genetic engineering is, of course, something that we've been doing for quite a while here, where we have a better understanding of the genome. We're able to go in and gene editing. Gene editing is a better term maybe than genetic engineering. So they'll be able to go into the genes and change things. And that could have great applications. I'm kind of saving some of the applications to talk about after I get through describing them all. Then robotics, obviously, we got a lot of robots in the world currently. And then nanotechnology is very, very tiny technology. And you can, of course, read the example in the textbook. But nanotechnology is technology on, measured in nanometers, on the molecular level technology. Now, what they're saying is that one or a combination of these technologies could result in an event that we would call the singularity. And the singularity is a word that is borrowed from science. That's another word for a gravity well. And you have, say, a planet in space. Anything that has gravity is a gravity well, because, as Einstein proved, gravity, or starting with Newton, I think, actually, and then later Einstein, space-time is curved, and that when something has gravitational force, it pulls things with lesser gravitational force into its gravitational well. It's kind of like a descending gyre, like a whirlpool, right? With the mass at the bottom, right? So this singularity is a term that was borrowed by futurists and sociologists, people that study culture, to describe the effect that an invention or a technology has on our culture. It's like the gravity well, in which a technology so changes our culture that it's very much like grabbing a smaller object into an orbit. The automobile is a really great example. Think of taking a person from, say, 300 years ago and bringing them to now, and how blown away they would be just by the change that the automobile has had in our culture. Just think about how much of our planet we've covered with rock so that we can drive around these automobiles. And that might not even be the technology that we continue to use 100 or 200 years from now. Because one of the things that artificial intelligence will allow us to do, and this is pretty much here, it just hasn't been proliferated, is Google will drive your car. Artificial intelligence, the computer is going to be able to, you're going to be able to put your car on an autopilot system that uses global positioning and Google Maps and all sorts of computer information, and be able to, and sensory data from the car. You have to have a car that has such data. You can't take a old VW bus from the 70s probably and easily convert it into being able to be driven by Google, but still, it's a technology that's here. Robotics, we basically got robots right now that are going to be able to take care of the elderly in nursing homes. We're very close. All they got to do is figure out how to give them better decision-making processes. You know, like if you got two elderly people fighting over a remote and another elderly person that needs his medication, how does the robot prioritize giving the medication over settling the dispute about the remote? And once they figure out that, it's a difficult algorithm, that's a difficult programming hierarchy that would have to be figured out. Robots could take care of people in nursing homes. And then nanotechnology, you know, I mean, there's all sorts of ways that this is going to be used and is currently already ready to be used. It's just not out on a wide scale or affordable enough. We're going to have smart fabric. We're going to have clothes with nanotechnology in the clothes. It's going to be able to heat up when you're cold. It's going to be able to repel water. It'll probably be able to adjust its size based on your parameters. You could have nanobots in your bloodstream. You know, that would send, say, a notification to your phone. Your blood pressure is elevated. You know, nanobots, you know, 1 million through 300 million have discovered, you know, 20% cancer in your spleen, you know, stuff like that. It's going to be amazing. And so what this book is about is how one or all of these technologies could have this singularity type impact on our culture such that the world that would follow would either be like a paradise or it could be apocalypse. Or something in between, which is more likely to be the case. So I want to work with these technologies as our subject matter, so I want you to choose from them. But you're not required to read the Radical Evolution book or even get it. It's totally extra credit. It would be helpful in working with these technologies. There's another book called The Singularity is Near, which of course uses the word to describe the cultural event, written by Ray Kurzweil, who's written other books. He works for Google. Google hired him to run their artificial intelligence division. He runs a website called KurzweilAI.net, which has a lot of articles. He posts articles every day on his website about all these technologies. So it's a really good resource to find a lot of information about these technologies for stuff for your assignments for this course. All right, that's enough for this video. Look forward to my other instructional videos.